Okay, last time we finished up the melacha, the prohibited labor of cooking on Shabbat, and all of the rabbinic extensions of that prohibition. I demonstrated, and you watched me make tea, the different ways of making tea on Shabbat, and that was the last of the, and then we had also already, in the prior class, we'd gone through all of the 39 distinct categories of labor on Shabbat and gone through a basic definition of each one. Okay, those were the last two classes. Our next topic is which is a concept that comes not from the Torah itself, but from the prophets. It's like a rabbinic prohibition, but of great seriousness and great weight. Prohibition against talking about and involving oneself in one's business affairs and in kind of monetary, financial thinking on Shabbat. Okay, so Shabbat should be a day separate from writing and cutting and whatever, and it should be a day not of commerce. Okay? Yes?
Quick high-level question on that.
Yeah, sure.
When you say it's a rabbinic prohibition of sort of great seriousness, how do you distinguish between different levels of
It's
rabbinic?
complicated. Yeah, it's a good question. That would be a...
Is it just like everyone agrees?
No. It's just because it has it. Like, in order for some, I'm going to say this. Like 1,000 ways to answer this question. Because it's a good question, and it's important, and there are different ways of answering. So
It's a long answer. We can just.
I can try to do it short, in a succinct way. And it's important. It's worth explaining. I had it. This is not what I once had a professor who someone asked him a question, and he said that's either a very ignorant question or a very sophisticated question, and I don't know you well enough to know how you ask that question. It's not what I'm saying at all. I thought it was a great line. There's also, my sister-in-law was once in a college class, and the professor made reference to some type of equation, or like wave dynamic equations, and she was like, well, what are, she didn't know what the term was. She was, what are wave dynamic equations? He thought she was asking like a much more elevated. I was like, yes, indeed, that is what we were asking. Wait, and I was like, no, like, just what are they? I think we need to know. So that's also not what I'm trying to say right now. But for something to have the status of a right of a biblical mitzvah or a biblical prohibition, it has to be sourced in the Torah itself, right? In the 5 books of Moses. That's like the product of direct revelation, and so things that come from the 5 books of Moses, that's a dioraita, that's a Torah level obligation or prohibition. Anything that's not, like, it's human legislation. On the other hand, if it is sourced back to to this, even within dioraita, there's certain, because some dioraitas are explicit in the Torah, and some dioraitas there's a requirement for rabbinic exegesis to source them in the Torah. So maybe, according to some scholars, those have different legal forces. Maybe you're only punished, according to some, you're only punished for violation of a prohibition. The court only imposes punishment for violations of prohibitions that are explicit in the Torah. We're getting very, fine, sophisticated delineations, which are not necessarily practical, right? But just in terms of like the origins of law and the force of law, it's sort of worth sort of mentioning. And then within rabbinic legislation, so it could be like in the classic rabbinic period, some prohibition was added, but if it's sourced back to a verse in the prophets, so it's in Scripture. It's just not the 5 books of Moses. It's part of the later books of the Hebrew Bible. Then it's human legislation. It's not from direct divine, like in the Torah, but because it's in Scripture, it's like one of the prophets kind of said this as opposed to a later generation. It has sort of more seriousness. Practically doesn't really matter at all. You sort of have to do all of it. And historically, it's sort of, it could be that people were just observing mitzvot and not doing things on Shabbat, and like the distinction, that sorting of restrictions into what's biblical and what's rabbinic, that language, dioraita, dirabanan, that I've been using, and rabbinic versus biblical, that language is a relatively late language. It's only in the Amorei period, the later Talmudic period, when they started using that language in reference to specific prohibitions. So it seems like the agenda of, like, maybe it wasn't so important to classify everything in a neat way. We know we don't do all these things we don't do on Shabbat. We know what we do, we know what we don't do. And the endeavor of being really sure we know what to classify each thing into, that seems to have come later in the rabbinic period. We find the language describing that classification only later in the rabbinic period. So it's not. Does that help that you feel you know more, you know less, or you know different things?
Oh, yeah, let's charge ahead, I don't want to
Okay.
derail.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Sorry, one before you ask. Jay Harris's book, How Do We Know This, would be a good, like, if you read that book, you would know a lot more about this particular topic.
Yeah, I read it a few years ago, so it's fuzzy,
Okay.
but I was thinking about like the Sadducee, Pharisee distinction or the Karaite distinction.
So that's, I would say this is all orthogonal to that kind of, because we all, like, everyone is a rabbinic Jew, everyone, like, all of us are rabbinic Jews, we all,
So this is intra-rabbinic
these are all
distinctions really
inter-rabbinic
evolved
distinctions,
later.
exactly, because everything is rabbinic, like, even things that are biblical, like, we know about them because the rabbi said, well, the Torah tells us, right, so it's all rabbinic, it's all, you know, sort of mediated by the rabbi telling us what's in the Torah, yes.
So what I'm wondering is, you know, when Moses, he got the 10 Commandments, right? When he brought down the 10 Commandments, why was it 10? Why didn't he bring down over 630? Why was it 10?
So.
He had the ability to
So,
write it down.
indeed, he, it was more than 10. First of all, the 10 Commandments, in Hebrew it's called the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 statements, because there are 10 of them, but they're not necessarily 10 commandments, because if you go through and say how many distinct commandments are there, it's either less than 10 or more than 10, but there probably aren't 10. Like, you should, it's a good like exercise one time, like read through it and
Right.
see how many distinct commandments are there, and you might get 16, you might get 8, like depends on how you,
Right.
what you can, what isn't a commandment. I think the great is one, like, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, is that a commandment or not? Right? So
Well,
think about it, or you don't have to answer me now, because that's a dispute. Whatever you say, you're going to be right, or whatever you say, I'll be wrong. Okay? So the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 statements, are special in that all of Israel heard God say those words to Moshe, and they were inscribed on the tablets. But all the 613 mitzvot, and all of the 5 books of Moses were the product, we believe, of divine revelation to Moshe, direct word for word. And so all the 613 mitzvot we say are from Moshe. The question is, it seems that the more reason, I think more reason, if you read the Torah, it seems that throughout the 40 years of the desert, Moshe got various mitzvot from God, and he would teach them to the people, and then that way, over the course of those 40 years, the Torah got written, and then at the end of Moshe's life, the Torah was complete. So all the 613 mitzvot are there from Moshe, from God. They all have equal validity. The thing to just remember is that not all of them are. Some of them require the oral Torah to tell us how to do them. Some of them require the oral Torah to even let us know that they're all together, because just the written Torah alone is not a very useful book for living your life or figuring anything out. We need the oral Torah to tell us how to read the written Torah. So the oral Torah, there was always some oral Torah that was along with the written Torah to make so that it would make sense.
Right.
And part of the oral Torah is study this book really, really carefully and figure out what it means. That's also part of it. So whenever the rabbis using their hermeneutic methods, their methods of interpretation, they said, this is what the Torah means in this verse here. So that also has the status, the legal status of biblical law, even though it may not have been discovered until thousands of years after Moshe. It has the legal force of biblical law because it's sourced back to this is an authoritative interpretation where this verse in the Torah means.
Okay.
Is that how that?
Yeah,
Good.
that's what I was trying to.
Good. All right. Okay. So we don't talk about business on Shabbat. We don't also commerce on Shabbat. You're sitting around the table. Not appropriate to talk about salary or like how much you're going to spend on this and that. Right? It's not a day. It's a day about spiritual things, about family, about values, not about sort of mundane affairs of the world. Probably not a good, you shouldn't be reading catalogs, Shabbat, I try, not here it's not, doesn't make, but sometimes when I lived in New York, I would try to not to walk on, and just even here too, I mean, this is not relevant where I live, but like as you figure out, as you walk around, to prioritize residential streets than commercial streets, because it's, again, the whole, you want to be not in an environment of commerce and buying things, and right, it's not a day for that, it's a day for other kinds of.
So no window shopping.
No window shopping. Again, so there's a fine line between, or there can be a fine line between, like, ooh, look at that, you know, whatever, I'm going to buy it, and can I afford it, and how much does it cost, and I wonder if I can haggle the price down, and that, versus, you know, oh, look at that, you know, beautiful thing in the window, and I admire the craftsmanship, and I'm going to have a conversation about how they manufactured that beautiful thing. You know, like at some point it can be a fine line between the conversation that's about commerce and buying and stuff, versus a conversation about
The art of the.
yeah, like the type of thing, like just talking about something you love and care about with a friend, right? You know, and it's not, well, it can be subtle, right? You are allowed to talk about financial affairs if it has to do with a mitzvah. So you could have a conversation with leadership of the community. You know, the synagogue needs $200,000 for the rabbi's office extension, and then how can we, you know, sitting here at the table, come up with that money, and you know, because this is, you know, it's a tzedakah, it's a charity conversation, it's a mitzvah-oriented conversation, even though it has monetary elements. The focus of the conversation is about mitzvot rather than about commerce and profit.
That sounds like a rabbinic loophole.
So talk about, well, the verse is don't talk about, you know, it's not a day about your affairs, right? But affairs that are religious is okay, right? You can also, you know, making, you know, arranging matches you can do, right? Even though, you know, it's, which in many cultures and at times and places was a financial conversation about, you know, who'll pay for what for the young couple if we actually marry them off. And those types of negotiations are also based on Shabbat because it's about a mitzvah, it's about establishing a household, it's not about profit, right? So, commerce per se.
Can you do that business, right? So can you transact if you're a 501c3, for example?
So you can't actually, there's a separate rabbinic restriction against exchanges and acquisitions, but you can negotiate and talk about and fundraise, just can't actually do the transaction.
Mm.
There's a joke about, you know, so people sometimes, there's a joke about, in Yiddish you say nisht Shabbos geret, which means this is not something we like to talk about on Shabbos, which is what you say before you talk about something you're not supposed to talk about on Shabbos. You say, you know, nisht Shabbos geret, you know, those look really expensive, you know, boots, you can say, you know, like nisht Shabbos geret, it wasn't so bad, I got it on sale, it was, you know, the kind of thing. You know, so the joke is somebody goes up and, you know, Shabbos, Friday night, he says, nisht Shabbos geret, I'm selling my car. So nisht Shabbos geret, how much do you want? He says, you know, $10,000. Shabbos morning, he says, nisht Shabbos geret, that's, I won't pay more than 7,500. He says, nisht Shabbos geret, it would cost me, you know, it's worth at least 800. And then at Shabbos Mincha, you know, he said, you know, after Kiddush, he said, nisht Shabbos geret, how about, you know, I'll give you 8,000 my final offer, or something like that. And I forget. The joke. The punchline is he says after, he's like, hey, you know, we have a deal. He says, no, I sold it at Mincha. So I come to Shabbos, but I sold it at Mincha. You shouldn't do that. Don't do that. Don't be like that guy. But again, it's like the things we talk about. Like it's like what is the day about? Right? It's not a day where we're not a day of recreation and leisure. It's a day of like leisure for a purpose. Okay, we're refraining from work and from certain type of activities in order to like create something, a sanctuary in time. That phrase, right? We want to. All of the no's and the don'ts and the spreading the butter and the, right, it's all supposed to be about creating a sanctuary in time for us to focus on relationships with God and with our community and with our family, with our friends, people we love, to pursue spiritual pursuits, which if we just use the time off from work to talk about work, then it's sort of a wasted opportunity. So Tircha and Shamshat. So in one instance, the Ramban, who is Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, one of the great medieval commentary rabbis and scholars, he wrote, among other things, he wrote a commentary on the Torah, and he says in one of his comments that the phrase Shabbaton, a Sabbath day, Sabbath observance, appears in the Torah, and he's in one of the places where it appears. He says this tells us that there is a separate mitzvah, a distinct mitzvah, to make Shabbat a restful, tranquil day that is distinct from and separate from all of the 39 categories of labor that we've been talking about for 2 weeks. 3 weeks. So you have, because he says, you could have loopholes, you could schlep furniture from your basement to your attic and back and forth all day long. And which of the 39 melachot, which of the 39 categories of labor would that violate? None, right? You're not carrying outdoors, you're carrying indoors. You're not dragging something on the ground to make a ditch or a groove, you're just carrying things on your back up and down the stairs all day long. So you haven't violated any of the 39 prohibited forms of labor, but he says the day would not be a tranquil, peaceful day. So he says there's a biblical obligation rooted in this word Shabbaton, that Shabbat should be a restful, tranquil day, and that is, it emerges from, but yet is distinct from the 39 categories of labor. So this is an idea that the Ramban, Nachmanides, or Moshe ben Nachman, in a number of his comments in the Torah, he gets at this point that the mitzvot of the Torah, or the specific details of the mitzvot, they're a floor, they're not a ceiling. They're there to give you framework and guideline, but they're not supposed to be they're not meant to be, they should not be, they must not be the be-all and end-all of one's service of God and one's religious life. You're supposed to learn from them. We have 39 things we can't do, which translate into hundreds and thousands of little, very, very refined details about making tea, pouring water, and buttering bread. But that's all towards a purpose, again, like I said, a sanctuary in time, and therefore, even if you can't identify what is the thing that this violates, like someone asked the question, about watching a television that your neighbor has left out, right? So there's no technical violation there, but that's not the day we're trying to create. We're not trying to create a day of TV watching. We're trying to create a day of spirituality and tranquility. So, what's the problem with schlepping heavy furniture up and down the stairs all day long? Well, not one of these, nothing actually, except everything, right? Except the whole point of the day is to be tranquil and rest and to walk slowly and calmly and be relaxed and enjoy oneself, and not to be carrying heavy burdens and toiling, okay? It should be a tranquil, restful day. And so, and the Rabbi says this also in a total other section. He says, the Torah says in Leviticus, the Torah says, you should, Kedoshim to you, you shall be holy. And again, the Rabbi says, Nachmanides says, all of the restrictions of the Torah might not be enough to prevent you from leading a very base and vulgar life. You could be saying also use of foul language, and you could be a glutton and care only about food and hedonistic pleasure, and you could do all that without violating any of the prohibitions of the Torah. Only black kosher food, you just eat it, but you're still living a gluttonous lifestyle, but with fully kosher food. And the Ramban said, no, the point is, learn from all of these 613 examples, like in the 614th, the 615th case, where there is no specific mitzvah telling you what to do. How can I be holy in this case? How can I elevate myself spiritually, ethically? He says it again. The Torah says, "V'sita yeshar et tov," in the book of Deuteronomy, you should do that as right and good in the eyes of God. And Ramban says that's separate from the mitzvah. You have, again, 613 mitzvah with tens of thousands of details, and you learn from those details so that when there's a case that emerges, there's no details telling what you do. You have to, is this ethical? What does God want me to do in this case? Is this a restful, tranquil activity that's going to enhance Shabbat? Is this a way to live a holy life, even if it's technically permitted? Is this an ethical thing to do, even if there's no specific mitzvah governing what I'm supposed to do at this time? The mitzvah, all the mitzvah, the whole framework of halakha is a floor, not a ceiling. And the obligation to go beyond that floor, that's also within the Torah itself. It's also halachic, so it's a little paradox, right? The law tells you to go beyond the law. And
how do you think of those in terms of is that a distinction of subjective versus objective? Is that a distinction between piecemeal versus wholesale? Is that a...
Yes, all those things. And it's a... Ramban, in one of those comments, 3 passages where he develops these in those 3 different examples, is one where he says you couldn't make a book that was big enough that told you what to do every moment of your life, right? Just like a perfect map with a 1-to-1 scale would be, the size of the universe, right? It would be as big as, right, thing. So any book that told you what to do at every moment, in every instance, would be, like, no book could be that big, right? So instead, the Torah gives us examples. It gives us 613 distinct, here's what you do in this case, but you're supposed to learn from them. You're supposed to intuit, okay, and then constantly ask yourself, what does God want me to do in this moment? Learning from using the 613 example. Well, I know that I'm supposed to be careful about the honor of the stranger. I know I'm supposed to provide food for the poor. I know I'm supposed to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so now I'm confronted with something where I can't quite see. I don't think there's a mitzvah that tells me what to do now, but I've intuited the values of the Torah that sort of leads me to figure out what's right and good in the eyes of God in this moment. The phrase in Hebrew for this is the F'nim Mishra Hadin, which is translated as beyond the letter of the law, but that's a mistranslation because it's really beyond the letter of the law means you leave the law behind and you act in an ethical way that the law doesn't require. The F'nim Mishra Hadin means you go within the law. You learn how to obey the law in all of its deep, meticulous details, and from that deep engagement, your personality is transformed, or you have the capacity to intuit how am I supposed to act in this moment, to keep Shabbat tranquil, to be ethical, to be holy.
Your wife can't fight with you on this day. She's not allowed to.
Why?
It's not tranquil.
Not tranquil. Well, so it's good to work on restoring relationships with friends, whatever work that entails, okay? Which is always a mutual process, right? A tranquil, pleasant day, right? You don't want to go into Shabbat with each other, it's good. People call parents and siblings on Friday afternoon before Shabbat if they don't live together, just to wish them a good Shabbat. That's like a nice thing to do. That's a good thing to do. Every Friday to call everyone. I don't know if I can say names, but I know people who in strange relationships, but every Friday they'll call anyway, just because you want to have that tranquility, you don't want to have that hanging over you over Shabbat. So they should be tranquil. That means even if technically you can find watching a television that somebody else has turned on, or even turning on a television, which isn't necessarily a violation of one of the 39 melachot, but the day is not a day for TV, it's a day for prayer and Torah and good food with friends and family and community, tranquil, right? Not going to, things come up. I always felt, that sometimes, when I was in college and I worked on a university campus, there was some people went to football games on Shabbat because then they didn't have to, you could arrange not to have to pay for a ticket, or you don't have to carry a ticket, you could get in without violating one of the 39 melachot. I felt this was a clear violation of this principle of Ramban, that it's supposed to be a tranquil day, and there is nothing tranquil about being at a college football game, right?
Is that driven by the fact that the people who are on the field are breaking Shabbat, or is that
People around,
true even if it's a symphony?
It's a great question. So it's very, very subtle. It's both. So one definition of this Utin Dechol is kind of weekday activity that we don't do on Shabbat, even if it doesn't violate. One is it's just being in a non-Shabbos environment. You're surrounded by people who are writing, taking pictures, and using their phones, and all around you. Or it's just about
it's not spiritual.
Or it's about the ambiance as opposed to the being surrounded with the violin, which could be the same. There might be a Saturday symphony as well would be a problem. Although maybe going to many places you get free entry. You can buy the tickets in advance. And, you can go to museums. Some museum, I don't know. You can sort of be off by. It's not a group activity. You can walk with your friends and look at paintings and talk about them, right? You don't have to be outside, which is different from being in a football game where you're part of the crowd and everyone is doing whatever the crowd roars and you're doing the wave and you're watching the football. It's a whole this going to museums would seem to me to be different because it's a more individual activity.
What about movies?
Yeah, so movies it's going to be hard to get into without paying.
Or if you buy the tickets in advance.
So I would do the same as that to me would be a violation of this as well.
Like the TV.
It's like the TV. It's not about.
to get lost in something.
Yeah. So you could say, how do you watch a movie different from looking at a painting? A movie
That's what I was thinking.
So a movie can also be aesthetic, and it can be about spiritual things. It can be a piece of art. I understand that. And if you're not putting on, you're not switching it on, they're doing it for you, you buy the ticket in advance, you know. So I hear what you're saying, but I think it's too much of a group activity. Everyone else around you bought their tickets. Everyone else, right?
What about exercise? If it
Exercise-
makes you, you
Good,
know,
so
if it's like you by yourself.
Good. So exercise is in this. It also comes into this.
I mean, I know it's not allowed, but I'm just wondering.
It's complicated.
what
Exercise is complicated, and it may be, it could be. I would say it's the, for kids it's allowed. That's what they enjoy themselves. I think for adults it should be, the day should be tranquil day. So I think playing catch with your kid in the yard, or even a friendly game of ultimate frisbee or something, like that could be okay. I think when you're like schwitzing and you're sweaty, like you're supposed to be wearing nice clothes on Shabbat. You're not supposed to be like covered in sweat and mud and whatever. Depending on what you're playing, you might, if you're like kicking up clumps of grass as you run across the field, that would be a real problem if the nature of the field and your clothing and what you're doing.
As long as it's very leisure, very relaxed.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some people are more strict and some people are less strict. So
As long as you're not breaking a sweat doing it.
some people are more strict, some people are less strict, and I'm not going to tell you what to do right here, right now. But those are the questions asked. The questions asked are like the nature of the game. Is it a tranquil recreational activity, or you're like, is it more robust? Or I think if it's so, for an adult who, if you have to change out of your Shabbos clothes in order to do it, that seems to me like that would be a sign it's probably not how they do it. It'd be nice clothes in Shabbat. So, on the other hand, compared to,
Yeah, I get it.
you can talk more about, what's the goodness. Again, use the opportunity. It's like things that you can't do other, you can play sports on Sunday, play sports on a Thursday night, but.
I don't like sports.
Okay, so don't have to worry
I
about
don't
it.
watch them, I don't do them.
And everyone's talking about it. Okay. Anyone else can talk to me about sports later. So the other sort of interesting, the last of the 39 categories of labor we did talk about was carrying something from one domain to the other. We talked about that, right? From private to public to private, or more than 4 cubits, which is 6 feet in the public domain. We said if it's not a public domain, as defined biblically, but it's merely a rabbinic public domain, you can circumvent the prohibition of carrying there by use of an eruv, the symbolic boundary around the neighborhood or in the city, which allows carrying. This is it's an unusual melacha because it doesn't change anything, it just changes the location of the item. So it sort of doesn't fit kind of the same paradigm of our normal thing. Normally melacha, it's crafts, it's changing, it's making, and here you're just moving something. So nonetheless, it's sort of okay. Not only can we not move things, move the locations of things, we also can't move ourselves beyond its tchum. Tchum is 2,000 cubits, so about 3,000 feet. You can't walk more than 3,000 feet outside of your city or town or settled area on Shabbat. So in modern America, this doesn't really limit us because you don't have like, here's the city and here's the town, and then there's like an outside, then you have the field, like the city ends, right? But if you have like in some parts of the world, or even some places here's the clear, you could clearly draw a circle around the village, the town, or the city, and you can say here's where it begins, here where it ends. Here's my circle of settled area, so you have a radius of 2,000 cubits in any direction. That's how far you can walk on Shabbat. It's a rabbinic prohibition.
Does that apply to the eruv too? So can you walk no more than 2,000 cubits outside?
Eruv has nothing to do with that. Eruv is separate. So the eruv is again separate from that. So it's very rare that this would be an issue in the United States. It might be maybe you're spending Shabbat in a cottage in the mountains, so you can't go on a big hike, you can't walk into 2,000 cubits from your cottage. Or in Israel you have like a kibbutz maybe that's like, very distinct, has a little fence around it. It's like very clear, here's the kibbutz, and it's surrounded by fields, so you can't, if the next kibbutz over is more than 2,000 cubits away, you can't walk around Shabbat. There is a separate type of eruv that can allow you to extend that a little bit, but I'm not going to, it's discussed in the books and will probably unlikely to occur in your lives in the next 10 years, so I'm not going to discuss it now. Just know that it exists. Okay, questions, anything else so far on this? Anything else?
Talking about emergencies, you need to walk or you need to
Good.
travel.
So if life is in, it should be on, it should be on here. If life is in danger, you can violate Shabbat. You must violate Shabbat if life is in danger, period. That's not a question. You drive, you cook, you whatever you have to do if someone's life is in danger. If someone's life, that's the point. But,
That's the point. As long as your life is danger.
If it's not risk of life, but it's still some medical emergency, you can. Many medical emergencies can escalate to being life-threatening if they're not treated. So usually, if it's a medical emergency, you just do it. There might be some cases where it's clearly not a medical emergency. It's not going to escalate to a medical emergency, but you are in severe discomfort, and you could seek treatment through rabbinic violations for a case like that. Perhaps a non-Jewish person helps you get to medical care, or it depends what, million permutations, but does that answer your question? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Now thinking, now with all these new modern smartphones, etc., so you can get a doctor, let's say. But of course, there's a financial transaction for that.
So that's all rabbinic, right? So making a phone call is at worst rabbinic. The payment is at worst rabbinic. Signing the thing, that's biblical. So maybe you can, but if you sign with just make an X instead of signing your name, then that's all rabbinic, right? So there are a lot of things that can be done with just rabbinic violations. And then what the physician's going to do is mostly rabbinic anyway. The physician's going to be writing down your name and taking your address down, doing your case history, and that's writing, which is a biblical prohibition. But the physician's probably not Jewish anyway, so that's and maybe, and if depending on the situation, you could just say that all the record keeping that takes place. If you're in a hospital, when you're hospitalized, all the record keeping that happens is life saving, right? The fact that keeping proper records of every patient in the hospital. No one's in a hospital for fun. If you're in a hospital, it's because there's a medical reason for you to be there. Otherwise, they kick you out. So if you're there, it's for a good reason. And once you're there, all the record keeping that takes place is really important for patient care and keeping people alive. So there. I guess as things, I'm happy to, if you have specific questions about some of that, I'm happy to discuss. But there's a lot of literature, vast lot of literature on navigating some of these medical situations. But we want people to get medical care when they need it. And there's even psychological. Just one last thing I'll say about that. Even psychological benefits, like if you. Let's say there's a life-threatening medical situation that requires urgent care on Shabbat, but you can also say, but for my psychological being, I want you to be there with me in the hospital, right? So that person can also go with you, right? Or I want my physician to treat me. So then you can call even there's another physician who could, I want my physician, so if he wants me, I'm going to go. Because, right? He's entitled, the sick person's entitled to that, or there's the close hospital we can take you to, but there's a better hospital, one that you like more, which is farther. You can go to the farther hospital. The psychological, the subjective psychology of the patient also dictates what the medical treatment we provide at Shabbat for that person. So we want people to get the care they need. Okay.
But even as you write for this purpose, you still want to kind of manage the waterfall of rabbinical versus.
So that's a question. I think we tend to say yes so long as it doesn't impact care, which is a hard thing to. I don't know. I've experienced this with when twice my wife went into labor on Shabbat, and so that's like a medical emergency. Thank God it's not a dangerous thing, but it has to be, you can't ignore it. It has to be, you take care of it medically on Shabbat. So you go to the hospital and they make you sign a million things, right? So to the extent that they won't treat her until we sign, so you have to sign. On the other hand, there's really no reason why I can't just do an X, right? Which is only rabbinic prohibition. I don't have, I can just do that, or I can say please fill out the the form about your. Like religious preference form, or the, what would you like for breakfast form, or the, like how did you know, who's rate the cleanliness of the, emergency room, like form, like, like that, those are not necessary for patient care, those can wait, and you could say,
You're under a lot of pressure. Not only are they having you break the Shabbat.
yeah, so, but you're right, so,
Yeah.
those are, on the other hand, you have some people who say, well, if it's possible to drive to the hospital without using your turn signals, that's much better, because, every time you use the turn signal, you turn the light on, and then you turn the light off, but,
Same with the brakes, and you don't want to.
Yeah, but that's.
You don't wanna get rid of those.
Don't use the brakes, but that's, so the counter argument is, it's really unsafe to drive that way. Even if, let's say, it's the middle of the night, no one else is around, but just the added, like if you drive regularly, like using the turn signals hopefully is automatic, and you just like, the more if you're like subconscious of not using turn signals, that's then you're not paying attention to the road, and that's unsafe. So you should use your turn signals. And is it, what about when you pull up in front of the hospital and you jump out of the car, dad, whatever, you run out and you let your wife and get out of the car. So are you allowed to park? You delivered the patient to the hospital. Why are you allowed to get back in the car and drive to the parking lot? So if you don't, they'll tow the car, but that's just money, right? You can't violate Shabbat to save money, so why are you allowed to, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to park the car. So, first of all, if there's a valet, they'll take the car, that's great, which often is the case, let the valet take the car. But, if not, you can still park the car, because leaving a automobile with the keys in the ignition and the engine running, it's not just a that's a really dangerous thing to do, because there might be a rambunctious 6-year-old who may jump into your car and, God forbid, like harm someone, right? That's a danger, so we have to really, we take, protecting you and life really, really seriously. It's a prime value injury. It's not the highest value, it's a very, very high value. So when there's a medical emergency, we take care of it.
You've probably talked about this, maybe, I don't know. But what about, like, Ubers? Like, if you, in that case,
So that's Uber, right? So what's the...
I mean, you would have to call it on your phone, so I mean, I think...
So calling on your phone is at most rabbinic. And then you're not actually handing money or transaction money. It's all being done, automatically without you. So I would say, yeah, like if it's just as convenient a way to get to the hospital, use Uber. But I wouldn't say you couldn't use it.
Like if you're scheduling it on Friday morning for
So I would,
Saturday.
you couldn't. So I would. It's not permissible for convenience, but it would be a way to do like Shabbat violation mitigation in a case of great need or emergency, right? So if you, that would be like if you had a kid who had a high fever. So is his life in danger? No, but like they should really be seen by a doctor. You shouldn't wait, the next day. So don't drive there, but take an Uber, right? That's a way to get to the doctor's office with minimal Shabbat violation. Maybe have the driver open and close the door to you so that you don't make the light go on and off. And like that's something that like is not putting the kid in any great danger. He's being seen by a doctor, then when he should be, and at really no added risk or or delay. You get there without violating Shabbat. So or if your train coming is delayed or your plane is delayed and you land and you're not going to make it home in time for Shabbat, so you take an Uber, and that's a way to minimize the violation of Shabbat, because you can't just stay in the train station. It's not safe to spend Shabbat in the train station. But you're right. So an Uber is a way to mitigate that. Or if you're a doctor and you have to work until you can't leave to stay at the end of your shift, which is going to be 10 p.m. Friday night. Like an Uber is a way to enable you to spend the rest of Shabbat, with your community, with your family, without violating any local prohibitions in most cases. But just for convenience, we wouldn't allow it. There was there were discussions. I think there was a case. There were discussions in the 20th century about using subway systems on Shabbat in cities where you didn't have to pay, or you only paid one way, whatever. I forget there was a situation you wouldn't have to pay, and you had your ticket or whatever it was, and could you use the subway? And I think maybe one rabbinic scholar in the 20th century sort of argued to permit it. Everyone else said no for various reasons. There was a time in the later 20th century, there was a synagogue in New York. It was very, very popular. Had a very active outreach program. People with limited Jewish backgrounds were coming to the synagogue. Hundreds of young people. It was a big single scene. It was exciting. The rabbi was a dynamic educator, and dozens and dozens of people became observant Orthodox Jews through their connection to the synagogue. At a beginner service, like geared to people without limited background, and they said, if you come to the beginner service 5 weeks in a row, you'll be observed forever, because like you'll be so tuned in and sucked in. And at the peak of the synagogue, the rabbi said, well, maybe we should have like a trolley system, or like a bus system for people who live not within walking. They'll call it the Shabbos, and make a non-Jewish driver, and he'll stop at every stop, even if no one's there. So he's not stopping for you, because he's going to stop, and he'll just make the rounds of, bring people to and that was not done. It was rejected by everyone. I don't even know if it's a true story. It's a popular story, but that's why I didn't say the name of,
Is that because you'd have to use incrementally more gas based on how many people are in it?
Maybe. I would say, all of these, they're very technical discussions, which I haven't researched recently, so I can't speak about it. But aside from those technical, actually one of the really great things about Shabbat is that you're not traveling. Everybody, like these rules create community. They mean, if you have an entire community of people who all live within walking distance of their synagogue, then that creates social capital. What's his name? The social capital guy, Robert Putnam. Robert Putnam wrote a book in the 90s called Bowling Alone. Right? Americans love to go bowling, but in the 50s we used to bowl and go in bowling teams, and now people just go by themselves and bowl. And he uses that to say, like, what's happened to America? We used to have social capital. We used to be friends with our neighbors. We used to be members of organizations like unions or Rotary clubs, or which required us to like do things with other people in our communities. And the percentage of Americans who have, had a conversation with their neighbors, or had a barbecue with their neighbors, or are members of an organization that of any kind has gone down dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
But like Sabbath observant Jews, we still have that. Like we have, because we all live, near each other. We have one day where no one's going, no one's going anywhere where their feet can't take them. So everyone's always around. You can invite someone for lunch. Your kids can have play dates. You don't even have to plan in advance. You just walk over, knock on the door. If they're not home, it's because they're at somebody else's house where you'll find them. The playgrounds in our neighborhood are filled with children from our community. No one has to plan it. You just show up Saturday afternoon when the weather's nice. The playground in Roscoe Street, 10, 20 kids from the shore. No one's planned a thing. They just show up because we all live here. We all live in walking distance of the shul. You can grab somebody in shul and say, do you have a place for lunch? Come with us. Because no one has plans. Right? No one has plans in the sense of, the little plans someone would have is that they're going someplace else, and maybe you'll come and join us for lunch instead of I go to you for lunch. No one has plans that are taking them far away. No one has is going home a place where we can't walk to. So it's so important for the kind of community that we want to have in the life that we have. So I think that's sort of why I'd say these plans have never been really appealing. Community requires people actually living near people living near each other is a really important thing for community. Whereas Putnam would say, one of his theories is that suburbanization, where everyone is sort of living far-flung lives in sort of these suburbs and exurbs, has done a lot and spending all their time in cars commuting. They don't have time for community. So we may also commute, but at least on Shabbat we don't. Shabbat we live walking distance. That was my editorial comment. So speaking about community, so just to point out, there are communal dynamic in Shabbat, and something that we will end with this. It's a day of community. Like you should be in shul, you should be in the synagogue in Shabbat, and there's no reason per se. There's no.
What if you travel?
Like it wouldn't even appear.
What if you're traveling for work and
Yeah,
you're not by your synagogue?
Yeah.
And you could still do your own Shabbat prayer wherever you are.
Sure, good. That's a very good point. That's absolutely true. And you might even choose, once in a while, that you want to spend Shabbat in a cottage that you rent by the sea or in the mountains or whatever. Sure. But there's a mitzvah to pray, which we'll talk about eventually, And there's an enhancement of that mitzvah when you pray with a congregation, pray with a minyan. But you can pray individually on Shabbat, and you can pray with a minyan during the week. Right, so from the perspective of the mitzvah of prayer, I can't think of any reason why it's like more important to pray with a minyan on Shabbat versus a Tuesday. It's the mitzvah to pray every day, and if you pray with a minyan, that's like the best way to do that mitzvah.
Okay.
So from the perspective, from the framework of, from the vantage point of the mitzvah of prayer, Shabbat is really, I don't think it's different from any other day of the week. From the perspective of like, no, this is a day where we focus on relationship to God, our relationship to our family, our relationship to community, so important to like come to the synagogue on Shabbat. Like it's a day about community. And so Shabbat is when, people who don't make it to the synagogue during the rest of the week, they make it to the synagogue on Shabbat. And it's so wonderful when you're traveling to get a chance. Okay, so I'm in Dallas for work this week, but there's a synagogue, or several, I think there are more than one Orthodox synagogue in Dallas, and I'm gonna contact them and say, I'm here for business. And they will say, great, like, can you help me find a place to spend Shabbat? And they will say yes. Okay, that's true. I mean, they should. If they're not, they're doing something wrong, but they ought to. Okay? You should be able to contact any synagogue in the world and say, I'm here for business, I need a place for Shabbat, and they'll say, great, here's a place to stay, and here are meals.
Yeah.
Okay?
They have apartments usually that they rent out, they have available.
That's unusual to have apartments to rent out, but they will either...
Not that they rent to you, but they kind of already have them reserved for themselves.
That is unusual. That is unusual. Maybe, I mean, that does exist some places. Most communities will not do it. They will find you someone, they may say, here's a hotel within walking distance of our synagogue, and you can call them and we'll find you a place to eat your meals.
Okay.
Or they'll say, here's somebody who you can stay over in their house. Just FYI, Asher Shalom, we will put you up in someone's house if you provide a letter of reference from your rabbi. Right? And it happens all the time. I'm traveling for work, or I'm here for a wedding, I'm here for whatever it is, I'm here for vacation, and I live in New York, I live in Paris, I live wherever. Here's a letter from my rabbi saying, so-and-so is a member of my community, I know them, and we say, great, and we'll find that place to spend the night. And put them up for meals. And other synagogues do this as well, this is not an unusual thing. This was a tangent. So, that's a great thing to do. Therefore, like, go to shul even when you're traveling, if it's possible. Again, it's a reasonable thing to choose once in a while not to, because you want to go off. Time with family. It's a reasonable thing to choose that you might want not to every Shabbat. But part of the Shabbat experience is a day of community, and so it is the time when our synagogue is most full. It's when people who don't come during the week do come on Shabbat, and that's appropriate. And we have an extra prayer on Shabbat, Musaf, right? The additional prayer on Shabbat, corresponding to the fact that in the time of the temple on special days of the year, there were additional sacrifices part of the temple, additional worship in the temple. We have an additional tefillah, additional service. Instead of morning, afternoon, evening, we have morning, late morning, afternoon, and evening, or morning, early afternoon, afternoon, evening, an extra service. And again, that perhaps is standing in for that communal element that, come together, even if you don't pray with a minyan during the week, make a point of doing so on Shabbat. And if you've been to our shul on Shabbat, you've seen that. If you haven't yet, you will, okay? And we read the Torah on Shabbat, that's another, right? And this was already from the time of when the temple still existed. When the temple still existed, Ezra, at the time of the return from Babylonia, when the second temple was just being built, Ezra's, that's the reading of the Torah has to be part of our calendar, part of our ritual life, and so they instituted regular readings of the Torah. So we read the Torah on Monday and Thursday, which were ancient market days. So people who lived in far-flung farmhouses would come to the village on Monday and Thursday, and they'd get to hear the Torah being read on Monday and Thursday, and we still read the Torah every Monday and Thursday a little bit, and then Shabbat we read a big chunk of Torah. There were two different methods of reading the Torah. There was one method where every 3 years they completed the entire 5 books of Moses, and there was another custom that was in Babylonia where they finished the 5 books once every 1 year. That's the system we have now. So we finish the Torah every 1 year, but the point is, again, part of Shabbat, again, it is, because the mitzvah to study Torah every day, right? It's a perpetual mitzvah to study Torah. So with respect to studying Torah, Shabbat is no different than any other day of the week. From respect to Shabbat, it's in that communal element of Shabbat, a day focused on not just our relationship with God, not just our relationship with our family, but also our relationship with our community. So we come together, even if we don't pray with the minyan during the week, we pray with the minyan on Shabbat. We have that extra Musaf service, and we read you hear the Torah being read. And you come every week, over the course of the year, you hear the entire Torah being read. And that also is a unifying element in Jewish life, because we have, every synagogue in the world is reading the same sections from the Torah. And so you should walk up to any Jew you see and say, hey, what are you thinking about? And of course, what are you going to say? Oh, I'm thinking about, here's this idea I have for this week's Torah portion. Because what else would they do? Right? That's what should be on everyone's mind all over the world, because that's what we're going to be reading this Shabbat synagogue, and we should all be thinking about it in advance, in anticipation, and on Shabbat itself, that we should all be talking about it, because we've heard it in the synagogue, we've studied it, we've read commentaries, we've heard podcasts about the parsha, whatever it is, and that should be something that we can all have available to us as a community to talk about Shabbat. Okay, I think we'll pause here. We just finished Roman numeral 2. Next class we'll start talking about the holidays. Okay, just going through the rest of the calendar basically.
Was Tehum the cubit limit outside the city?
Tehum was the... Yes. When do we meet next? Is it on the calendar yet or not? When do we meet next? Let's meet, I can't meet the 20th or the 21st. I can't meet the 27th. So I can do the 28th. So let's meet the 28th back here at 8:30, okay? And it'll be in the show bulletin, it'll be in the bulletin, and emails and stuff.
So March 28th at 8:30.
Yes. Great. We're also going to try. The 14th is going to be, that's not going to work. I can't do that. I can't do 13th. That's, yeah, okay.
Is it here?
Yes, on that, yes, back here. Sorry. Yep.
28th is the next one, right? There's not another one in your reading.
Say it again?
There's not another one before that, right?
There is not another one
Before the 28th.
before the, yes. Right, I'm sorry, I'm traveling, my wife is traveling, and there's Purim. I hope come to Purim, come to later Purim. I should it's a very, very fun. Purim is Saturday night, Sunday. And it's a really fun day to be in Israel, so please participate in everything you can.
Great.
All right, good night, thank you.
Thanks.